Let me ask you a question. A question that might change how you see the rest of your life. What is the hardest thing you've ever gone through? Take a second and think about it. Maybe it was the day you lost someone you loved. Maybe it was the time you worked so hard for something and failed. Maybe it was the day the world told you, in no uncertain terms, you are not enough. Hard moments, we all have them. They shape us, they leave their fingerprints on our hearts, and sometimes they leave scars so deep we think we'll never recover. But let me tell you a story. A story about a man who thought he had hit the end of the road. He was a factory worker, average man, average life. One day the factory closed, no warning, no paycheck. Just a locked gate and a notice on the door. He went home that night feeling like the floor had been ripped from under him. He had a family to feed, bills to pay, and no plan B. But here's where the story gets interesting. Instead of giving up, instead of sitting there with his head in his hands, he decided to try something bold, something scary. He took the little savings he had and started a small business. He worked from dawn until midnight every day. There were times when the fridge was empty and the lights almost got cut off. But he kept going, he kept pushing through the hard. And years later, that little business became the biggest employer in his town. What was his secret? He kicked the hard. He didn't run from it. He didn't complain about it. He didn't wait for someone to save him. He faced it, used it, and built his life around it. That is what this message is about. How you can take the hardest moments of your life and not just survive them, but use them to create something extraordinary. Face the hard. Don't flee from it. Most people spend their lives running from pain, running from fear, running from responsibility. They hope that if they stay far enough away from the hard parts of life, they'll never have to deal with them. But here's the truth. The very thing you run from is often the thing that contains the key to your growth. Life's challenges are not walls built to keep you out. They are invitations to rise higher. They are the gatekeepers to the next level of who you can become. When you face the hard instead of fleeing from it, you take the first and most important step toward a life of strength, purpose, and fulfillment. Think about the hardest season you've been through in your life, the one that nearly broke you. At the time, it probably felt like punishment, like an unfair burden that should have belonged to someone else. But if you look closely, if you look honestly, you'll see that it was in that season that you discovered something about yourself you didn't know before. Maybe you discovered that you were far stronger than you thought. Maybe you learned that you could survive something you once believed would destroy you. Maybe you realized that you had talents, grit, or courage you had never tapped into before. That's the power of the hard. It introduces you to yourself. But you only get that gift when you stop running and start facing what's in front of you. Fear has a way of magnifying problems, making them look far bigger than they really are. When you face the hard directly, you strip fear of its power. You begin to see the situation for what it really is. Not a monster that's going to swallow you whole, but a challenge you can work through step by step. Most of the suffering people experience is not from the challenge itself, but from the constant dread of facing it. The sleepless nights, the anxiety, the endless worrying, those are byproducts of avoidance. When you look the hard square in the face, you often discover that it's not as big, not as terrifying, not as impossible as you made it in your mind. Facing the hard doesn't mean you won't feel fear. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's action in the presence of fear. It's deciding that no matter how uncomfortable or uncertain you feel, you are going to step forward anyway. Life rewards that kind of bravery. Opportunities that stay hidden from those who hide suddenly begin to reveal themselves to those who dare to look. And something extraordinary begins to happen inside you. Your confidence grows. Every time you face something difficult and push through it, you prove to yourself that you are capable. That proof builds self-respect. And self-respect builds momentum. There's a story of a mountain climber who stood at the base of a great peak and almost turned back because it looked too high, too dangerous, too exhausting to climb. But he took one small step, then another, and slowly but surely he made progress. The climb didn't get easier, but he got stronger. By the time he reached the top, he realized that the real reward wasn't just the view. It was the person he had become on the way up. That's what happens when you face the hard. You transform. You grow into someone you wouldn't have recognized at the beginning of the journey. The hard will not wait for you to feel ready. It will not become softer because you wish it would. The only way through is through. You can either let the hard chase you for the rest of your life, keeping you small and fearful, or you can turn around and face it right now and take back control of your story. One day you will look back on the moment you decided to stop running and realize it was the turning point that changed everything. So, whatever hard you are facing right now, the debt, the heartbreak, the dream that feels out of reach, the fear that keeps whispering you're not enough, stop running. Plant your feet, take a deep breath. Face it with everything you've got. The moment you do, you will discover that you are not a victim of life's challenges but a master of them. The hard was never meant to crush you. It was meant to call you forward. And the sooner you face it, the sooner you'll rise to the life you were always meant to live. Turn pain into fuel. Pain is one of the most misunderstood forces in human life. Most of us are taught to avoid it, numb it, or run away from it. We see pain as a signal to stop, a punishment from life, a sign that we are somehow on the wrong path. But pain is not always there to stop you. Pain is a teacher. Pain is a compass pointing to the exact area where growth is possible. And if you learn to turn pain into fuel, it can become one of the most powerful forces for transformation you will ever experience. Every breakthrough story you've ever heard, the rags to riches journeys, the triumph over tragedy tales, they all have a common thread. Pain was the spark that ignited change. Think of the person who turned a personal illness into a mission to help others, or the individual who faced rejection and humiliation so many times that they eventually built something no one could ignore. The pain wasn't the end of their story. It was the beginning. But here's the secret: pain only becomes fuel when you decide to use it. If you let pain fester, it becomes poison. It can turn into bitterness, resentment, and despair. It can make you cynical, convince you that life is unfair, and rob you of the will to try again. But when you take that same pain and decide, I will not waste this, I will not let this suffering go unanswered, you begin to transform it into something powerful. Think about a blacksmith forging a sword. He takes raw metal, places it into the fire, and pounds it into shape. That fire represents pain. It is hot, intense, uncomfortable, but it is necessary. Without the heat, the metal cannot be shaped into something strong and sharp. You are the same. Pain is the fire that can refine you, if you allow it. Some of the greatest moments of innovation and creativity have come from moments of deep pain. Someone loses a loved one to a preventable disease and decides to dedicate their life to finding a cure. Someone experiences poverty so crushing that they vow to create opportunities for others so no one else has to live the way they did. Someone is told they are not good enough and decides to prove to themselves and the world that they are capable of more than anyone imagined. Pain was the spark, and that spark lit a fire that changed everything. The key is to ask yourself the right question when pain shows up. Most people ask, why me? They sit in self-pity and wait for life to feel sorry for them. But that question leads nowhere. The better question is, what can I create from this? What can I learn from this? How can I use this to become better? That shift in perspective turns pain into power. Suddenly, instead of being crushed by the weight of what happened, you are being propelled forward by it. When you begin to see pain this way, you no longer dread it, you respect it. You understand that pain is not there to destroy you but to strengthen you. The moments of your life that hurt the most can become the most valuable, because they force you to grow, to adapt, to discover new parts of yourself. And here is where the real magic happens. When you use your pain to grow, you also inspire others. People around you who are quietly suffering see your courage and begin to believe that they too can endure and rise. Your story becomes a light in someone else's darkness. It doesn't mean the pain disappears. It doesn't mean you stop feeling hurt. It means you choose to give that hurt meaning. You take something that could have been wasted and you turn it into action, into purpose, into momentum. So, the next time you feel pain, whether it's the sting of rejection, the ache of loss, or the weight of failure, pause and remind yourself this is fuel. This is the fire that will forge me into who I need to become. You can choose to stay where you are, bitter and defeated, or you can choose to take that pain and use it to climb higher, push further, and live more fully than you ever have before. Pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. The difference lies in what you do with it. Use it. Let it light a fire under you so strong that it burns away your fear, your excuses, your limitations, and leaves behind only the strongest, most resilient version of yourself. Train your mind before your circumstances. Everything in life begins with the way you think. Your mind is the command center for your entire existence. What you believe, what you expect, what you hold as true. Those thoughts quietly shape your actions, your decisions, and eventually your results. And here's the remarkable thing: you don't have to wait for your circumstances to improve before you train your mind. In fact, the secret to turning your life around lies in doing the opposite, training your mind first so that your circumstances eventually catch up. This is where most people get it backward. They say, when I have more money, I'll start thinking positively. Or, when life gets easier, then I'll start believing in myself. But life doesn't work that way. Circumstances are the effect, not the cause. Your thoughts are the cause. If you wait for things to change before you change your thinking, you'll be waiting forever. The only way to break that cycle is to begin where you are, right here, right now. and condition your mind to see possibilities, to expect growth, to look for opportunities. Even when you're standing in the middle of difficulty, the human mind is like a field. Whatever seeds you plant will grow. If you plant seeds of doubt, worry, and fear, that is exactly what you will harvest: more doubt, more worry, more fear. But if you plant seeds of courage, confidence, and faith in your ability to overcome, you will eventually harvest results that reflect those beliefs. It may not happen overnight, just like crops take time to grow, but once you consistently cultivate the right thoughts, life begins to change in ways that feel almost miraculous. Training your mind doesn't mean pretending everything is perfect. It doesn't mean ignoring reality. It means taking control of the story you tell yourself about what's happening. Two people can go through the same challenge. One says, "This is the end," while the other says, "This is the beginning of something new." And guess what? They will both be right, because the way they think will determine the way they act. The one who believes it's the end will stop trying, and their life will stall. The one who believes it's the beginning will look for solutions, take action, and eventually break through. So how do you train your mind before your circumstances? You start with awareness. Notice the thoughts you think every day. Most of them are automatic, left unexamined, and shaped by old experiences or fears. Begin catching yourself when you start spiraling into negative thinking. Challenge those thoughts. Replace them with ones that are empowering, even if they feel uncomfortable at first. Tell yourself, "I can handle this. I am capable. There is a solution and I will find it." At first, it may feel forced, but with repetition, those thoughts begin to take root. And once they take root, they begin to influence your emotions and actions. Visualization is another powerful way to train your mind. Earl Nightingale himself often said, "We become what we think about." Take a few minutes every day to clearly picture the life you want, the person you want to become, the problems you want to solve. The clearer your mental picture, the more your subconscious mind begins to look for ways to make it real. This is not magic, it is psychology. Your brain is wired to seek alignment between what you repeatedly think about and what you experience in reality. And here's something you must remember. You cannot control everything that happens to you, but you can always control how you respond. That control begins with your thinking. When you train your mind to stay calm under pressure, to focus on solutions instead of problems, to persist even when things look bleak, you become resilient. You stop being a victim of your environment and start being a creator of it. Eventually, you'll notice something fascinating. The more you train your mind, the more your circumstances begin to shift. Opportunities that were invisible to you before start appearing. People who can help you seem to show up at the right times. You begin to act differently, with more confidence, more clarity, more consistency, and that new action leads to new results. This is why training your mind first is so crucial. If you wait for the world to give you permission to think positively, you'll stay stuck. But if you choose to think differently today, even while life is hard, you'll lay the groundwork for a future that is stronger, freer, and more fulfilling than you can imagine. The battle is won in the mind long before it's won in the physical world. So train your mind. Plant good seeds. Guard your thoughts like treasure, because your life will always move in the direction of your strongest, most dominant thoughts. Build unshakable discipline. Discipline is the quiet power behind every success story. It is not loud, it does not demand attention, and it rarely feels glamorous in the moment. But it is the invisible force that shapes your future. Motivation will get you started, but discipline will keep you going long after motivation has faded. If you want to kick the hard and turn your challenges into victories, you must build discipline so strong that it becomes part of who you are. Think about this. Every result in your life today is the sum of small decisions you made yesterday, last month, last year. Success is not one big leap. It is thousands of small steps taken consistently in the same direction. And discipline is what makes those steps possible. It is the ability to do what needs to be done, even when you don't feel like it. That's what separates the people who achieve extraordinary things from those who stay stuck where they are. When you begin to build discipline, you are essentially reprogramming yourself. You are teaching your mind and body that following through on your commitments is non-negotiable. You are creating a pattern of reliability within yourself. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, whether it's waking up on time, finishing what you started, or sticking to your plan, you strengthen that pattern. And every time you break a promise to yourself, you weaken it. Discipline is a muscle, and like any muscle, it grows with use. At first, it might feel uncomfortable. You might resist the structure, feel the pull of old habits, want to give up when it gets inconvenient. But the more you practice, the stronger it becomes until it is second nature. This is why small daily disciplines are so powerful. They compound over time. The simple act of being consistent builds momentum, and momentum builds confidence. Before long, the thing that once felt hard becomes automatic. Consider an athlete training for a marathon. They don't start by running 20 miles on day one. They start small, showing up every day, running a little further, pushing a little harder, slowly building endurance. Day after day, that discipline shapes them into the kind of person who can finish a marathon. You can do the same with any goal in your life. You start small, reading a few pages a day, saving a little money, practicing your craft for 15 minutes. Over time, those small, disciplined actions transform not only your results but your identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who wishes for change and start seeing yourself as someone who creates it. And here's something important: discipline is not about punishing yourself. It is about respecting yourself. It is about deciding that your future is worth the effort it takes to stay on track today. When you choose discipline, you are telling yourself, I believe in who I can become. You are choosing long-term fulfillment over short-term comfort. There will be days when the temptation to quit will feel overwhelming. Days when progress feels invisible and the hard feels heavier than ever. Those are the moments that matter most. Anyone can stay disciplined when it's easy, but it is in the moments of struggle that your character is forged. Every time you resist the urge to give up, every time you choose to follow through despite the discomfort, you are building a foundation so strong that nothing can shake it. Over time, this unshakable discipline becomes your greatest advantage. It frees you from relying on motivation, which comes and goes like the weather. It gives you a sense of control over your life, because you know you can trust yourself to do what needs to be done, no matter how you feel. And perhaps most importantly, it prepares you for bigger challenges. When life throws something hard your way, you will have the inner strength to handle it, because you have trained yourself through daily discipline. This is how people turn dreams into reality. Not through luck, not through bursts of inspiration, but through steady, consistent action. Discipline is the bridge between where you are and where you want to be. Build it brick by brick, day by day, and soon you will find that nothing can knock you off course. So, make the decision today to start small, start simple, but start with discipline. Honor your commitments. Do the thing even when you'd rather not. Over time, that discipline will become your freedom, and it will give you the strength to face and overcome any hard that life puts in your path. Refuse to play the victim. One of the most liberating decisions you will ever make is to stop seeing yourself as a victim. Life is not fair, and it was never meant to be. Every single person you admire, every person who has achieved something remarkable, has faced injustice, disappointment, and hardship. The difference between those who rise and those who stay stuck is not the size of their challenges, but the way they respond to them. When you refuse to play the victim, you take back your power. You stop waiting for someone else to fix your life, and you start building it yourself. It's easy to blame circumstances. It's easy to point to the job you didn't get, the parents you had, the opportunities you missed, or the people who wronged you, and say, that's why I'm stuck where I am. But when you do that, you are giving control of your future to the very things you wish hadn't happened. You are allowing the past to dictate your present and your future. Playing the victim may feel justified for a moment. It gives you a reason to avoid responsibility, but it will never lead you to freedom. Imagine two people who go through the exact same experience: losing a job, facing rejection, hitting rock bottom. One person says, this always happens to me. The world is against me. They sink into despair, waiting for someone to rescue them. The other person says, this is painful, yes, but it's not the end. I will figure this out. I will turn this into something better. They start searching for solutions, taking action, learning new skills, and eventually they create a new opportunity. The same event, two completely different outcomes, because of the mindset each person chose. When you stop playing the victim, you start asking better questions. Instead of why me, you ask, what can I do about this? Instead of waiting for someone to give you permission to move forward, you give yourself permission. This is the moment you stop living reactively, letting life happen to you, and start living proactively, making life happen for you. Refusing to play the victim doesn't mean denying your pain. It doesn't mean pretending bad things didn't happen. It means choosing not to let those events define who you are. You may have been hurt, but you are not broken. You may have failed, but you are not a failure. You may have been knocked down, but you are not required to stay there. This choice is not always easy. In fact, it can feel incredibly hard because it forces you to face uncomfortable truths. It forces you to admit that no one is coming to save you. It forces you to accept that the person responsible for your next step is you. But hidden in that responsibility is incredible freedom. If you are the one responsible for your life, that means you are also the one who has the power to change it. The moment you refuse to play the victim, something inside you shifts. You stop feeling helpless and start feeling capable. You stop focusing on what happened to you and start focusing on what you can create. That shift changes everything. You begin to see obstacles as challenges to overcome, not as reasons to quit. You begin to see yourself not as a passive player in your own life, but as the author of your story. And here is something remarkable: the world responds differently to people who take ownership. Opportunities appear for those who are willing to act. Doors open for those who knock. People are drawn to those who refuse to stay down. This is how leaders are made. This is how ordinary people do extraordinary things. So, whatever has happened in your life, no matter how unfair, no matter how painful, do not let it chain you to the past. You are more than your circumstances. You are more than what has happened to you. The moment you stand up and declare, "I will not be defined by this. I will not let this control me. I will create something better," you have already taken the first step toward freedom. Refusing to play the victim is not just an act of courage. It is an act of creation. It is you saying to life, "You may have knocked me down, but I will rise. You may have tested me, but I will grow stronger." And when you do this consistently, when you keep rising no matter how many times you are knocked down, you become unstoppable.